Most food safety advice focuses on how you cook something the first time, but there are a handful of everyday foods where the real risk isn't the first meal, it's the leftovers, sitting in the fridge, waiting to be reheated tomorrow. Today, I want to walk through 4 of them, why they behave differently than most food once reheated, and the simple habits that make each one safe again. My name is Dr. Lawson. As always, I'm an AI-assisted educational persona, not a replacement for your own doctor or a food safety inspector. What I'm sharing is general information based on well-documented food science, not a warning that any of these foods are dangerous to eat, just information about how to handle the leftovers well. Tell me in the comments which of these 4 you make most often. I have a feeling one of them is going to surprise you. Let's start with rice, because this is the one food safety researchers actually study the most closely for this exact issue. Raw rice can carry a bacterium called Bacillus cereus, which survives cooking as a spore. If cooked rice sits at room temperature for too long before refrigeration, that spore can multiply and produce a toxin. And here's the important part: that toxin isn't destroyed by reheating. The rice looks and smells completely normal either way. The fix isn't complicated. Refrigerate rice within about an hour or 2 of cooking, not left out overnight, and reheat it thoroughly, steaming hot all the way through. Handled that way, rice is genuinely fine to reheat as leftovers. This is a good moment to explain something that applies to all 4 foods on this list. Reheating kills most bacteria, but it doesn't destroy toxins that bacteria may have already produced while the food was sitting out. That's the real distinction. It's not about reheating temperature. It's about how the food was handled in the hours between cooking and refrigerating. Second, spinach and other leafy greens. These are naturally high in nitrates, which aren't a problem on their own. But when cooked greens sit around, especially at room temperature, those nitrates can gradually convert into nitrites, and repeated reheating can accelerate that process further. In small amounts, this isn't typically a concern, but it's part of why food safety guidance generally recommends eating cooked leafy greens within a day or so, rather than reheating them repeatedly over several days. The simple fix: cook only what you'll eat within a day or 2, refrigerate promptly, and if you're making a big batch for the week, consider freezing portions instead of repeatedly reheating from the fridge. I want to be clear about something here. None of this means these foods are unsafe to reheat once. The actual risk factors are specific: food left at room temperature for several hours, food reheated multiple times over many days, or food that wasn't stored cold enough to begin with. A single reheat of food that was refrigerated promptly is, for the vast majority of people, simply fine. If you ever notice an off smell, an unusual texture, or visible change in leftovers, that's the moment to trust your senses and skip it, not a reason to worry about reheating in general. If this is helping you think about your kitchen habits a little differently, this is a good time to subscribe, because the next 2 foods on this list are ones almost nobody thinks to be careful with. Third, chicken. Unlike rice, the concern here is less about a specific toxin and more about protein breakdown. Reheating chicken, especially in a microwave, unevenly, can leave cooler pockets where any bacteria present weren't fully killed the first time and had time to grow while chilled. The fix is straightforward. Reheat chicken until it's steaming hot throughout, stirring or turning it partway through if you're using a microwave, so there isn't a cold center. And fourth, mushrooms. Mushrooms are high in protein and enzymes that begin breaking down relatively quickly once cooked, which is why they're one of the foods most likely to develop an off smell or texture within a day or 2, faster than most vegetables. This isn't usually a dangerous spoilage in the sense of toxins. It's more that mushrooms simply don't hold up as leftovers as well as most people assume. The fix: if you're not going to eat mushrooms within a day of cooking them, they're a good candidate to skip reheating altogether rather than push it to day 3 or 4. I'll tell you about someone I'll call Ruth. Ruth is 71, lives alone, and like a lot of people, cooks a large pot of something on Sunday to eat from across the week. One week it was a mushroom risotto, reheated 4 days running. Nothing dramatic happened. But she mentioned to me that by day 4, it just didn't taste right anymore, and she'd been eating it anyway out of habit, assuming that was normal. That's a small, common pattern food. Doesn't have to make you sick to be past its best. And trusting that doesn't taste right feeling matters just as much as any food safety rule. Here's a simple habit worth adopting. When you're batch cooking for the week, split it into smaller portions and freeze half right away, rather than reheating the same pot from the fridge 4 or 5 times. It cuts down on repeated reheating entirely, and frozen portions generally hold their quality better than a fridge container reheated day after day. If you found this useful, type the word leftovers in the comments so I know you made it this far. None of these 4 foods are ones to be afraid of. They're simply worth handling with a little more attention than most leftovers. Refrigerate promptly, reheat thoroughly, and trust your senses when something seems off. If this helped you think about your kitchen habits a little differently, subscribe for more of these breakdowns, and I'll see you in the next one.